Morena, everybody. Welcome to the second round of formal hearings for the Speed Limit Bylaw Review 2021 for the Kaitaia area. Thank you all for being here this morning virtually. I hope everybody is staying well and staying safe. Before we kick into it, I'm going to ask Councillor Tepania to open us with a karakia.
Kia ora. Thank you, Chair Smith. I'm going to open with a part of Te Karakia Nuku Tawhiti. Nuku Tawhiti was the captain of the Ngātoki Matawhārua waka, did this karakia to ease the waves as he came into Hokianga Harbour, and it's very fitting for us for the speed limit bylaw review hearings today. So ka irihia ki waionuku, ka irihia ki waiorangi, ka whiti au ki te whai au ki te ao marama, tupu kerekere, tupu wanawana e, haramai te toki, haumi e, hui e, pāeki e. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Councillor Tepania. So apologies this morning. We have apologies from Deputy Mayor Anne Court, from Councillor Kelly Stratford, from Member Belinda Ward, and just acknowledging that Mayor Carter may be needing to pop in and out in response to our current COVID situation. Do I have any further apologies to note? No, otherwise I'm happy to move those. Would somebody like to second?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Right.
Thank you, Councillor Vusic. All in favour? Aye.
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 Excellent, thank you. That is passed. So that brings us straight into item 4.1. The recommendation in front of us, the report is the 2021 review of the 2019 speed limit bylaw for Kaitaia. The recommendation that Council receives and hears the Kaitaia submissions for the review of the speed limit bylaw 2019. I'm happy to move. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'll so second.
Thank you, Councillor Collard. Before I put that to the vote or any comments and questions, I'm just going to pass the floor to Sean from the NTA to introduce us and give us a bit of background for today following last week's submissions. Sean, the floor is yours.
Kia ora, good morning. The agenda item itself is fairly self-explanatory. It just sets out what submissions that were received, along with the process, the high-level process of the consultation and that type of issue. So I won't go into that. What I'd really like to do is just quickly touch on a couple of issues that were raised at the previous hearing in Mauriwa, as well as primarily because there were quite a few submissions received that were out of what we term out of scope. They related to state highways and things like that. So in terms of the submissions that we received and heard last week in relation to the state highway, I actually work with Waka Kotahi speed management team, and we have monthly catch-up meetings with them, and this is to look at opportunities to collaborate with Waka Kotahi, highlight issues that have arisen between both them and ourselves with regard to speed limit issues. The planning and consultation process for a number of state highway corridors is currently going through a review and sign-off process with Waka Kotahi. So they are looking at what sections of the state highway they will be doing some detailed consultation on. In I would imagine it'll be sometime early next year that they get around to doing that. I've also passed all the submissions on to their speed management team, and this is because of the number of state highway submissions around state highway issues that we received, as well as some of the issues that have been raised are quite relevant for what they're doing as well. So we're working quite closely with them. Another issue that came up with the last hearing was the difference 70 kilometre an hour, 90 kilometre an hour speed limits. I did provide a very, very brief comment on that at the time, but both of those speed limits, they are legal speed limits, but currently under the current legislation, we are discouraged from using either the 70 or 90 kilometre an hour speed limits. And the reason for this is the research indicates that a change of a 20 kilometre an hour from one speed limit to another provides a clear change in speed environment and achieves a far greater compliance than a 10k speed limit change. There are proposals to change that within the setting a speed limit rule, but currently we have to work to within the existing rule. And the other issue that was raised is around the variable speed limits near schools. Within the consultation, we are including a proposal for 30 kilometre an hour variable speed limits. Currently, it's difficult for us to do that, but the changes that are coming up with the setting of speed limit rules, which is supported by the National Road Safety Strategy, is for 30 kilometre an hour variable speed limits outside urban schools and 60 kilometres an hour outside rural schools. And where 30 kilometres an hour is not appropriate, then a 40k variable speed limit. So what we're doing is we're including that 30k within the proposals we're doing now, so that we don't have to reconsult at a later stage early next year again on those same schools, so that we've got the option of either a 40 or a 30, and it's unlikely that we'd put a 30 in until we've got the legal ability to do that, and we're effectively just covering ourselves in that respect. In terms of the process from here, following the hearings, I'll go away and prepare a detailed recommendations report that will include site visits. It will include looking at where there's a difference between the community opinion and what we've proposed, and more road safety assessments, more detail. Then that will then be put toward to council for deliberation, or to the committee for deliberation and decisions. That recommendations report will enable you to confirm the speed limits in principle, and then that allows us to then go away and do the procurement process. Once the procurement process is nearing completion, then we do the legal steps to actually change the speed limit. So there is a bit involved. So that's basically the comments that I was going to provide. If there's any questions that arise from the hearings today, I will be happy to answer those at the end of the hearing.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Sean. And I'm really mindful that our first speaker is with us, and we're 4 minutes over at this point. Right. So I'll ask members to hold any questions for Sean until the end of our hearings. And Sean, that's great that you've made yourself available. So thank you. On that point, we just need to pass this resolution in front of us, and then we can welcome our first speaker. So the recommendation that council receives and hears the Kaitaia submissions for the review of the speed limit bylaw 2019, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Collard. I'm in favour. Councillor Clendon.
Aye.
Mayor Carter.
Aye.
Councillor Collard.
In favour.
Councillor Foy.
Aye.
Councillor Tipania.
Aye.
Councillor Vucic.
Aye.
And that is passed. Thank you, everybody. So just a point to note, we have Malcolm Robson, who will be speaking to us as our final speaker today. He will be joining us online to observe on this Teams call this morning. So just letting everybody know. At that point, we have our first speaker, Vivian Craymond. Welcome, Vivian. I understand you are here with us this morning. If you'd like. Good morning. If you're able to turn on your camera, that would be fantastic. Otherwise, my name is Councillor Rachel Smith. I'm the chair of the Strategy and Policy Committee, and you have majority of the Strategy and Policy Committee here with you today, as well as a number of staff. So just letting you know that these hearings are being live streamed this morning via our YouTube channel, so you're world famous. You have 10 minutes to speak to your submission this morning, and if there is time within that 10 minutes, I will open the floor to any questions from elected members. Otherwise, I'll pass it over to you. The floor is yours. Members, Vivian's submission is agenda page 24. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm an older person who has been disadvantaged by this Teams meeting thing because my computer is almost as old as I am, doesn't have a camera and doesn't have a microphone, so I can't join Teams meetings. I much prefer, as my generation does, to talk in person. So you have me over a phone. I just wanted to speak as an older person who travels State Highway 10 on a regular basis. Prior to COVID last year and post-COVID this year, and before COVID this year, before the recent outbreak. In my role as the health and safety officer for my son's electrical contracting and service business, I travelled from Tokoroa Beach to Albany, Auckland, at least once a month and at times twice or more since February 2019. Prior to that, and since moving to the far north in 2008, we've travelled this road extensively. When we arrived home in 2008, the average time it took us to get from here to Albany was around 3.5 to 4 hours. In 2021, that trip is now 5 to 5.5 hours. Both times we always stop at Whangarei at Bunnings because they have a nice clean toilet and good coffee. But the average speed on State Highway 10, because I understand this is the one we're talking about, is but anywhere from 100 down to about, not including the restricted speed areas, we would be travelling there at times at 65 kilometres an hour. I don't believe was accidents. State Highway 10 has some parts not suited to 100 kilometres an hour, and that's fine, but common sense and driving comfort prevails at those points for most people. It's the lack of the safe passing lanes and so slow traffic lay-bys which causes the accidents. The lack of passing bays or pullovers on State Highway 10 causes frustration, impatience, carelessness, lack of consideration, and stupidity in some drivers. 90% of drivers would drive to the conditions. I drive 100 kilometres an hour where the road allows, but slow down to 70, 80 or 90, at least when it doesn't, as do most drivers. But that doesn't mean to say that we need to drop the driving speed down for those areas. Listening to the previous speaker, this variable speed limits thing is a real worry for most of us on the roads because we never know now. Driving to Ahipata is a classic case. There are so many different speed zones with tiny little signs that half the time I don't even see the signs because of all the foliage on the side of the road, distractions of other vehicles. You don't know what speed you're meant to be doing along there. You're focusing on, oh, now I'm on the right speed and not focusing on your driving. There is a KISS principle, which I think needs to come into play here. It stands for keep it simple, stupid. By lowering the speed limit, we're once again pandering to a small proportion of the population who cause mayhem and frustration for the many for their own gratification and for no reason other than to be seen, the reason we're changing them or looking at changing is to be seen to be doing something. This something, reducing the speed limit, is not the answer. The speeders will always speed. The telephone talkers and distracted drivers will always telephone talk or be distracted. To quote Forrest Gump, stupid is as stupid does. It will always be with us. We've put a traffic camera in the car because I know that if I'm ever involved in an accident, it's not going to be my fault. It's going to be the person who's done something stupid in front of me on the way to Auckland or back. Limits are a guideline according to the New Zealand Road Code. They're not an imperative. So the speed limit says you can drive at any speed under or equal to the limit. So by changing it from 100 to 80, you're not making any difference. The speed is there for safe traffic conditions. Your speed is safe for the road conditions. Your speed is safe for the weather conditions. You can stop suddenly behind a vehicle you're following. This is from the road, etc. So you just because the road speed sign says 100, you don't have to drive to that. but don't make it 100 here, 70 there, 80 there, 60 there, all the way through to the end of the road. It's imperative. State Highway 10 is 103.8 kilometres long. It has one southbound passing lane, a few kilometres south of Kaio, which is quite short, and 4 northbound passing lanes. Travelling from Pakuranga, the first of these just before Balgully, is only 250 metres long, totally insufficient for passing more than one vehicle or to allow more than 1 or 2 vehicles to pass slower vehicles. The second is north of Kaio, starts at the top of a long hill, is windy and not suitable for use when travelling south. The third, between the southern exit into Monganui, stops halfway up the hill where the northwestern entry and exit to Monganui meets State Highway 10 and is fraught due to traffic pulling out from the side road at 45 to 50 kilometres an hour without thought. The fourth and best design starts at the bottom of the hill past Kaingoroa and has a great run-off slow traffic lane at the top extending the passing lane, though probably not legally due to the solid white lines. So 4 overtaking lanes going north, 1 going south. This needs to change. The far north has, in my experience of driving these roads, a high number of retirees. Driving competence wanes with age and lack of practice. A monthly, 2 monthly or 6 monthly trip to Kirikiri or Palale without Liss Bay is not enough to keep confidence up. I often come across little old men and ladies travelling at between 65 and 80 kilometres an hour, 65 on every bend, bridge, oncoming traffic, and cow in the paddock. 80 kilometres on the 1 passing lane south, the straight road where visibility is good and there's no oncoming traffic, or going downhill and speed catches them unawares. These dear souls, coupled with the motorhomes, farm tractors, logging trucks, etc., end up with a convoy following them, waiting for the opportunity to pass. Conversations with older drivers, my age admittedly, but less confident, usually elicits the information that, oh no, I don't drive 100 kilometres an hour, 80 is safest for me. But if you lower the speed limit to 80 kilometres, then the conversation I can guarantee you would then be, oh no, I don't drive 80 kilometres an hour, 70 is much safer for me. And then there's a little old nana out for a trip to the shops, pulling out in front of me from Monganui as I was coming up the hill at just over 80 kilometres an hour, because I saw her first and knew she was going to do it, and drove all the way from there to Taipa at 45 kilometres per hour, middle of the road, even though it's a designated 60 kilometre an hour zone. A prime example of people choosing their own safe speeds to drive at and not paying attention to the road code. Or drivers behind them. Aging and inconsiderate drivers, holiday travellers unsure of the roads, along with logging and transport trucks, are amongst the biggest causes of frustration on our roads. Truckies are great for the most part at signalling when it's safe to pass them, because they can see ahead, but painful heading south with only 1 overtaking lane when you get stuck behind them on the hills. Rental cab vans were prolific on our roads and are usually miserable at pulling over to let traffic pass. They had no idea for the most part. COVID has been much better for us in that respect. The New Zealand Road Code states, and this is an imperative, slow drivers, if you are travelling slower than the speed limit and there are vehicles following you, you must keep as close to the left side of the road as possible, pull over as soon as it's safe to let following vehicles pass, don't speed up on straight stretches of road to prevent following vehicles from passing you. And I can guarantee each one of you that's listening to this, think of the times you've been frustrated by that last comment where you have, along with me, have consistently broken speed limits, travelling State Highway 10, to try and pass one of these slow vehicles. Another thing that needs to be considered is travellers, sales reps, etc. cover vast territories travelling these roads. Lowering the speed limit would have the unintended consequence of making their days that much longer and more tiring, possibly meaning for truckies that they're driving outside their permitted hours. Other New Zealand
Vivian, you have 1 minute. 1 minute.
Okay, so to summarise, leave the speed limit at 100. The far north is a long way from most places and drivers just want to get home. Cut back trees and foliage for better visibility so that there's more opportunities to pass. Spend money on upgrading State Highway 10. I can guarantee create more overtaking lanes, create lay-bys for slower traffic to pull over with signs, as with passing lanes, that these are coming up and slow traffic with 4 or more vehicles behind them must pull over, and use larger speed limit signs for better visibility. Having said all this, I'm picking pigs will fly before any notice will be taken of what I say.
Vivian, thank you for your time this morning and your impassioned submission. I really want to acknowledge that you have adapted to the situation that we're in, and I realise that it would have been challenging for you this morning to attend, so thank you for that. We have time for one quick question. I've got Councillor Tepanea for you.
Kia ora, Vivian. I hope that your submission doesn't just end up being a form of catharsis for you to this committee, because we do have power over our local roads, but our state highways we do not, because they are owned and maintained by the New Zealand government through Waka Kotahi, the New Zealand Transport Agency. I just wanted to ask if you had the opportunity to submit to Waka Kotahi on their proposed speed limit reviews of state highways in Northern, as well as this committee for our local roads in the far north.
I'm not sure that I have, to be honest. I'm not sure that I saw that. I get the council submission forms come through, and then if it's something that I feel passionate about, I respond to those. Is that one still open?
No, that has, to my understanding, has closed. But and what powers this committee has in our council for our local roads and in our advocacy roles with central government agencies, I'm sure that we will be passing on that sentiment you've shared. Kia ora.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate the time to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Tepanea. Vivian, go and have a great day. Enjoy that sunshine out there and stay safe. Thank you again for your time.
Will do, thank you.
So that brings us to our second speaker this morning, Trevor Beatson. Welcome to the committee. I see you there with us this morning. So my name is Councillor Rachel Smith. I'm the chair of the Strategy and Policy Committee, and you have majority of members of that committee with you today. So just to let you know, you're being live streamed via our YouTube channel today for the public's viewing pleasures. You have 10 minutes to speak to your submission. I'll give you a signal at 9 minutes, and if there's any time within that 10 minutes, I'll allow for any questions from members. The floor is yours. Welcome.
O tēnā rā koutou katoa, tuatahi e mihi ana hau ki o mātou matua ora tonu. Hoki e mihi ana hau ki ngā tini aitua kua wehi ki te pō, kia rātou haere, haere, haere. Hoki ki ngā whānau i mā wiwi ana i tēnei wā, kei te he o tēnei wā, kei wanganui a tātou o te tai tokerau, tēnei te mihi aroha ki a koutou i roto te hohipera, tō whānau kāinga hoki. Kia kaha koutou, taku aroha ki a koutou i tēnei wā. Me ka huri a hau ki a koutou o te taumata nei, nā kaunihera, tēnei te mihi ki a koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. E tautoko ana hau tō tina o kaupapa tēnei, nā te mea kātua hau ki te kōrero ki a koutou, ki a tātou i tēnei ata. So I've just pulled over on the side of the road in Mangamuka, where there's 3 bars and 4G coverage, beautiful, to speak to the council this morning. And look, I speak to the stretch of road that sits between Ahipata and Kaitaia. And I want to say first and foremost, I'm totally opposed to any restriction on speed limits in that area. I understand that the suggestion is that we reduce the speed limit to 80 from 100. Totally opposed to that. I spent 21 years in the police. Over that period of time, I went to countless car accidents, countless fatalities, countless single car crashes, countless issues on the road. And what I see on that stretch of road is a dangerous stretch of road. There's no doubt about that stretch of road. There are so many issues with it. It's poorly designed. There are lots of corners. It seems to subside often. There's subsidence in the road. We have deep culverts either side. And so it's a very unforgiving road. If you're going to crash anywhere, that would be a terrible place to do it because there's so much danger fraught either side. And so for me, The issue is not one of speed on that road. The issue is one of road design. And I think that the council has a responsibility on that stretch of road to improve the design of the road and the safety of the road, rather than try and enforce it through a speed limit reduction. Quite simply, as I travel around the country, I see beautiful roads in Tauranga, in Hamilton. These are signposted at 110 kilometres an hour. They are 4-lane roads or 3-lane roads. They're straight, they're safe, they have median barriers, they have side barriers, and everything about that gives you confidence as a driver when you're traveling that it's safe and that you can do that speed and there's no problems. Now, in terms of the Ahipata to Kaitaia road, there's none of those confidence factors there. When you drive that road, invariably you have to reduce your speed anyway, just to negotiate and deal with that road. And so what I've seen, and one of the previous speakers spoke to it, I used to follow Tom Murray in from Ahipata, and I don't know if Felicity remembers driving behind him. He would typically drive at about 65, and there would be a bank of about 15 cars by the time we got through Pukeputo, and then everyone would go on the straight. And Tom was notorious for holding Ahipata back. And I just think, if there was passing lane opportunities, if we widened the road, if we put some additional barriers up, then that stretch of road, there's no need to touch that 80-kilometre speed limit. I see a lot of, and they're just starting to pop up now, funnily enough, the Te Araroa walkers. It's Russian roulette for them, right? There's nowhere for cars to go in the case of emergency, but then you've got pedestrians walking at big backpacks who aren't as quick and nimble, perhaps because of the weight they carry. And so I just wanted to say, I'm totally opposed to it. It's a road design issue. It's not a speed issue. I think the council should be looking to widen the road and put in passing lanes so that traffic that are going slower can move to the left and safely can be passed. I also just wanted to touch base quickly on Ahipata in terms of the village speed limits. In the Takahi Kakapo Street area, I ran a survey 2 years ago requesting road bumpers to be put in, similar to what you see at Waipapakoti at the ramp there. I see the foreshore did well out of that survey and that lobbying of local government. We had hundreds of signatures and hundreds of feedbacks on that. The foreshore road area's got perfect jutta bars in place, perfect for slowing people on foreshore road. In Teneke side and the village side of Ahipata, we still have no speed restrictions, nothing by design that's slowing people down on Takahi or Kakapo Street. That still worries me because we don't have the footpaths and we have children that walk the road because that's where they have to walk. And so those are my two things. Thank you for listening. I don't want to go the full 10 minutes, so if you want to hit me with some questions, please feel free. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora, Trevor. Thank you for that fantastic submission. We have a few minutes, so I have a question from Councillor Vusic, Councillor Foy and Councillor Collard. We've got about 4 minutes.
Yep. Kia ora, Trevor. Very quickly, a couple of questions. I do know that piece of road as well. So can I, so everybody is clear, how many passing lanes are on that road? And then I see cyclist tours also being advertised from Rawene to Ahipata. In your experience in travelling, are there many cyclists using that road?
There are no set aside or designated passing lanes. So there is no third lane. It's a 2-lane road. There is no third lane at any part of that road to allow for overtaking manoeuvres. There are probably 3 areas that are indicated as passing areas where you can pass. By that I mean the yellow line with the white broken line. But other than that, there's no real places to pass. And it only takes one oncoming vehicle to make it impossible to pass anyway, which is what we see there. The road from Ahipata to Kaitaia is a popular training track, it would seem, for cycle groups in town. It's a great place to ride to. Ahipata, beautiful. And so what we see there is like the cycle groups that get together and ride out from town to Ahipata. We don't see, or I haven't seen a whole lot of cyclists doing the Rawene Trail. but from time to time we see them coming in and riding the Te Araroa Trail as well. So they'll ride from the Cape in big groups and then ride into town. So we do see that in that respect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Councillor Foy.
Kia ora, Trevor. I had two questions, and one of them is sort of to indicate to staff as well. So the first question is, are you opposed to there being a slower speed limit in the Pukepoto settlement, given Tū Marae and how close those houses are to the road in a Papakainga? That's my first question. And my second question is, have you seen the design that our previous safety engineer, Sandy Morris, on behalf of the NTA, commissioned for speed reduction for Tineke, for the Ahipata village, and to Sean Baker and our NTA staff? We're looking forward to see that tabled to our infrastructure committee. So those are my two questions.
So the answer to the question two, no, I haven't seen it. Would love to see a copy of that too. Because it has been 2 years since we did all that round of work, and that's quite a long time. And thankfully, no one's died in the interim. And if it was Pato Tepania's, one of his mokos that got killed, there'd be trouble. I think he said that at the public meeting at the footy field. So yeah, the sooner we can can have a look at that, the better. Secondly, I'm all for keeping Pukepoto safe. There's no doubt that plenty of motorists drive through the village too fast. And so, the fact, particularly the school, is right there on that 70 changeover, dangerous. Yeah, no doubt about it. Sweeping bend, 70 kilometres, people typically accelerate up and out on that corner. Dangerous. Should be slower on Pukepoto for sure.
Kia ora, Trevor. Thank you for that. Councillor Collard.
Yeah, morning, Trevor. Dave Collard here. So what you're saying is that a speed limit of 80 k's on that road in particular for Kaitoa to Ahipara would have no impact in terms of accidents and the potential for accidents, in your opinion, in a previous life as a policeman?
Yeah, I don't think speed is the issue there. It's the road design, and the majority of recent accidents there have been drug or alcohol related, and so people will continue to fall off the road whether it's 80 kilometres or 100. People get killed on that road because of the deep culverts and just the narrow verges. So if you are going to go off the road, you'll go off at 80 or you'll go off at 100. I don't think speed will make any difference.
So just to carry that a little bit further in terms of traffic calming in both Ahipara and the village of Pukepoto, and I certainly agree with Councillor Foy in terms of Pukepoto with the Tū Marae and the school, that there needs to be something a little bit better than 70 k's. Perhaps it's the traffic calming devices like speed bumps, which have worked very, very effectively in the Waipapakari ramp area. I think probably I was one of the guilty ones that unconsciously sped through there and not even knowing it until one of the locals told me so. So I recognise the impact of speed humps and would strongly endorse that. But are there only two? I think you only mentioned two streets in Ahipara that would require that, or there are others?
So the two streets I refer to, Dave, are Takahi and Kakapo. They are the longest, straightest racetrack runs in the village. So when you come around past the school, you go past Bid's Takeaway on the left, and you get to the fork at the fire station. The left fork and the right fork, those are the two racetracks. And so you'll hear the cars and the motorbikes and the different vehicles winding up there. And it's pretty scary to hear some of the speeds that you can hear and see going on there. I think we raised it 2 years ago around Ahipata. You go from a 100 kilometre zone straight to a 50, and then within 20 steps you're at Ahipata school. There needs to be a graduated reduction in terms of entering Ahipata, and I'd say it'd be a similar thing for Pukepoto. There'd need to be you'd hit a 70 and then you'd hit a 50 to take care of the school zone in Pukepoto and past the maraes, and then you graduate back up to 70 and then to 100. So I think to go from 100 to 50s, people just don't do it. People just carry on as per.
Thank you, Trevor.
Kia ora, Trevor. Thank you for that. Unfortunately, I did have one more question from Councillor Tepanier, but we've cut it fine on time. So I'll ask him to follow that up with you separately from here. Thank you for pulling over safely in an area with good coverage. Ka pai for finding that area. That's a legend in the far north. Go and have a good day and stay safe, hey? Ka kite.
Ngā mihi koutou.
Ka kite. So that brings us to our next speaker, Mr. Barry Kernet, who is here with us today. Welcome, Mr. Kernet. If you are able to, if you could turn your camera on, that would be great. My name is Councillor Rachel Smith. I am the chair of the Strategy and Policy Committee here with you today, and you have majority of that committee here. Just to let you know, you're being live streamed via the Far North District Council YouTube channel, so you'll be able to watch this back at a later time if you would like. You have 10 minutes to speak to your submission and to members for your information that is on page 30 of your agenda. I will signal you at the 9-minute mark, and if there is time allowed within that 10 minutes, we will allow for questions. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Hello. First of all, we have no camera on, just on a office computer. I'm sorry about that. So you can't see me and see how handsome I am, but never mind. I guess you're all familiar with my, well, first of all, can you hear me? You can, okay.
We can, yes.
Okay, right. So basically, my submission really is about the 90 Mile Beach. And you probably read the documents on the open beach. I agree with the 200 metres from legal access to the beach, the likes of Ahipata and that sort of thing. And you're saying 30 kilometres an hour. The rest of the beach, I don't believe it's 60 kilometres an hour is a safe speed. So basically the rest of the beach, I'll just read my submission, the rest of the beach, 60 kilometres an hour is too slow, especially when the sand is soft due to weather and sea conditions. Vehicles need momentum to get through soft sand on a 90 Mile Beach. I think 90 kilometres an hour or 100 kilometres an hour as it is now would be the safest. People do drive to the conditions. Where our family has a forestry block on the 90 Mile Beach, and we spend a lot of time up there. We've been going up there for over 50 years, and we've observed most people just driving to the conditions. Well, I'd really like to know what is the motivation for the huge reduction in speed, because how many deaths have there been in the statistics from 2006 to 2021, which is what your document is talking about? How many injuries, how many crashes, and what would be the interest in knowing is what's the motivation for wanting to reduce that speed? So I think, if anything, on the 90 Mile Beach, where you enter onto the beach, if you had a signage saying where it is safe to drive, too low, it's not good for your car because you're going to be going through the wave wash. Just above the wave wash, there is actually what you call a semi-dry piece of beach, which is where most people would drive. If you go up higher, you run the risk of washouts and you run the risk of soft sand and being stuck. Now, I've pulled a lot of people out of that soft sand at the top of the beach there from Matapia up to Tapaki Stream. A lot of people just don't know how to drive on the beach there. But getting back to the speed limit, when it's soft and the conditions aren't right, you've got to put the hammer down to actually get going. And so I'd like to know about how many accidents have been done to it as a result of the speed limits and stuff like that. Because where there is a school or a built-up area, we reduce our speeds, but there's nothing like that. So I want to know what science or what statistics you have on the amount of crashes and what the difference would make it, because one of the things on this document here, which is about creating a safer, great place, is reducing speed limits to actually make everything safer. So that's about my submission. But have you got questions for me? And I'd like some answers to the questions I've just made.
Thank you, Mr. Kernet, for that submission and for your questions. At this time, I'm not able to answer those, but I will ask for our staff to provide more detailed information, and we will get that to you. Do I have any questions from any members? Mr. Kernet, at this stage, I'm not seeing any indications. Apologies. Councillor Foy has raised her hand.
Thank you, and thanks for your submission, Barry Kernet. I have had quite a few people say that to me about driving on the beach. I thought Dave might have a beach driving question. Here he is. In our workshop about this, I raised a similar question about the practicalities of enforcing driving on the beach and at certain speeds, particularly driving in soft sand. We have our staff here, Sean Baker, who did answer that question. Madam Chair, I'm not sure if you wanted to give that same response.
Apologies, Councillor Foy. We are in a formal hearings at the moment. We're not able to do that. So if you could keep your question concise to Mr. Kernet, and we will provide that information to him separately from here. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Barry. I'm not allowed to ask a question. So have you ever seen any police on the beach with speed cameras, Barry?
No, I haven't. I've seen the local policeman up there just patrolling quietly, and sometimes he comes in and sees us, but not very often. He knows where we are. And I've just never seen the police on the beach. But like I said, tell tourists and people like that how to drive on the beach, where to drive on the beach, and then they won't get stuck and they won't be plodding up Tapaki Stream trying to get the Tapaki farm manager to bring the tractor down and pull them out. Sometimes they walk into our place and I've got a tractor there and I pull them out. So, it's obviously a problem. And some people, get pulled out by four-wheel drives that are going past. So that's really the biggest problem on the beach. And I think, drive just out of the wet, on the beach, keep left, really, what's the problem? I mean, when you change something, you're changing it for a reason. You're changing it because it's dangerous or, there's children around or something like that. So that comes back to the 200 metres from an access road onto the beach. Sure, there's kids running around the roar of the sea and they pick up the blooming shell and run over to mum and dad wanting to show them the shell, and they aren't even aware of a vehicle going past at 100 k's. So, I understand that one fully, but I don't understand reducing the speed limit. I mean, like I say, I'm starting to repeat myself. How many people have died as a result of being hit by cars on the beach? That's a $64 question, isn't it? I'm going to let you talk to me now.
Thank you for that response, Mr. Kernet. I've got Councillor Collard with a question for you.
Yeah, morning, Barry. Dave Collard.
Dave. Yeah,
I just wanted to talk about the access ways onto the beach, with there predominantly being four of them from Tipaki, Hukateri down to Waipapakari, and then Kaka Street at Ahipara, bearing in mind that from Kaka Street south to Ahipara is a fairly residential area, and that would probably all be included. But do you feel that 200 metres either side of each access way is sufficient, and is the speed of 30 slow enough? Because we see so many. Because I relate probably to experience on the beach as well, because I too have been driving that beach for 50 years and seen all sorts of potential, particularly in those areas. So the question is the 200 metres either side enough, and is it slow enough at 30 k's?
Well, in my submission, I said the rest of the beach at 60 kilometres an hour is too slow, and I'm saying here about Ahipara, I'm really going to say that. Legal access and built-up areas like Ahipara. So, for example, really right round to Shipwreck Bay and all of that, basically from the Kaka Street you said, they're right through to the end of the south end of the beach. We've read in the paper about, young fellas riding motorbikes on one back wheel, and the police going out there, and there's letters to the editor, and they seem to have cleaned that up. But I mean, that whole area is really somewhere where, I remember my kids are now in their 30s and 40s playing in the rock pools around there, and the young yahoos are going past on their bikes at speed. So yes, it's common sense there. But we're now, the main thing is about the balance of the beach, the whole open beach, and that's really That's the thing. Whether you make it 10 kilometres an hour or 50 kilometres an hour or 30 kilometres an hour, get your feedback from your locals. Find out about how many near misses there were and what they think, because they're living it. I haven't been to Ahipara for about a year, I think. But anyhow.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you for that, Mr. Kernet. At this point, I don't have any further hands raised. So that will bring us to the end of your speaking slot this morning. Thank you again for joining us and for taking the time to make the submission and come and speak with us today.
Thank you for your time.
Go and enjoy that sunshine and stay safe in these interesting times we're currently living in.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now, members, we've got 4 minutes until our next speaker is scheduled to speak. I don't believe she is with us yet, so I might just pause. It doesn't give us time to take another speaker slightly earlier. So I'm just going to pause for a couple of minutes until our next speaker, Linda Kay, is with us.
Yeah, well, I thought I would because you said I wasn't there, but I've been juggled several times this morning, but let's get into it.
Apologies, I have you scheduled to speak at 11:35. If I could just ask for some guidance from staff as to whether or not Mr. Brown has been brought forward. My understanding is that Linda Kay is to speak at 10:50.
I've had several texts from 10:35, 11, 11:15, and I've just got one saying go now because there's a gap.
Apologies for that. Let me just get confirmation. At this point, I've only got 3 minutes in this gap, so it's not really long enough to do your submission justice. Can somebody please clarify for me?
Things haven't got any better.
Mr. Brown, if you wouldn't mind just popping yourself on mute while I get clarification, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, through the chair, we have Mr. Brown on standby. He has been told to come in a little bit earlier while we wait for Linda to arrive, but Linda is due in about 3 minutes.
That is correct. She isn't with us here at the moment, Malima.
All right.
I'm
By
just
your
asking,
leave, though,
is she with us?
she's not here with us yet.
Okay, thank you.
Could I recommend, Madam Chair, going ahead with Mr. Brown? It would mean a few minutes delay if the next speaker does turn up, but since we've got him here already, that would be an option for your consideration.
Mr. Brown, the floor is yours. You're being live streamed today via our YouTube channel. You have 10 minutes to speak with the committee today, and I will let you know at the 9-minute mark. Away you go. Apologies, Mr. Brown, you're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me? Right.
Yep, I got you.
Just a little bit of my background. For some years, I was the chairman of the Land Transport Safety Authority, so I have some experience at a national level over this issue. And I can tell you that what we learnt was that speed limits only work if they are seen as credible. And so the best thing to do before you're changing is see what speeds people use now. A good example would be when I was mayor, we shifted the speed limit in the middle of Kerikeri to only 30 kph. And a whole lot of people said, wasn't that terrible? But we'd measured people before that and nobody could do 30 kph through the middle of town. So that it was accepted very quickly. While I was the chair of LTSA, I took to the committee there the fact that in those days, between Monganui and Taipa, there were 7 different changes in speed limit. And we changed it just to 60 k from one end of town to the other. Unfortunately, the people in Wellington who don't know where Monganui is didn't start it quite early enough, and it needs to be shifted to include Beach Road, because you leave Beach Road into the state highway network where people are doing 100 and it's 200 metres north, but you can't get up to a 60 in that period. You need to have, the council needs to have a close relationship with NZTA, or Waka Kotahi as they're now calling themselves, to restore credibility across the network. The public don't realise that NZTA run the state highway and council run all the other ones. They just think it's council. So you need to work closely with them and restore some credibility. The NZTA contractors consistently leave out cones and signs of 50 kph on state highway when nothing is happening. So everybody piles through and ignoring them at 100 k's. So just occasionally, when they do need to slow down to 50, everyone's doing 100 k's because nobody believes those figures anymore. In my period at LTSA, we actually fined contractors for leaving out signs that weren't actually justified. But they leave them out over the weekend because they don't want to pick all those bloody cones up or the signs. And so over the weekend, people drive through there, nothing is happening. It destroys the credibility of signs. The other general issue I want to raise is please don't respond to single issue road zealots. Somebody who says this little piece is unsafe because Johnny hurt there or something like that. Check to see, is that real or is it just that person having a view? Because if you have too many ups and downs around the district, you'll just get low compliance. We have low compliance in Northland anyhow. We have the lowest compliance of people with registered cars and warrants of fitness of anywhere in the country. I can remember at one stage when I was in LTSA, we ran a trial at Kyo where we said we would have an amnesty for people who didn't have a warrant, didn't have a driver's license. Kyo only had 400 people living there. We had 50 people showed up, and the average was they'd been driving without a license for 10 years. It just showed what low levels of compliance we have. So if you produce a whole lot of zones that are seen as unworkable, you'll just get more non-compliance. The idea also that because a road is loose metal, it has to be slower, is nonsense. There are some long straights in from Taipa on loose metal. It's perfectly safe to do 100 k's along. And people don't go 100 k's around sharp corners and through, even if it is still 100 k's, they slow down. And so less is more with what you're doing. You know, we don't want to have a whole lot of signs all over the place just because someone worries that someone might get hurt at Ahipata, particularly someone who hasn't been to Ahipata like the last guy, which is bizarre. That's pretty well all I had to say. On a specific thing, the only thing is get hold of that LTSA and shift that start of the 60k south to include Beach Road intersection in Monganui, because there's no sense not having it through all parts of Monganui, Coopers Beach and Taipa without including the major turn-off into Monganui. So the rest of it, mine is just general stuff. Keep them credible, see what speeds are used, do less, and try and restore credibility, and get stuck into those tier one contractors who just leave signs out, because you may not have control over the state highway network, but you employ Fulton Hogan as well, who not only that should be told that their staff need to be double vaxxed, because I think you're going to find there's a bit of bad news arriving from Fulton Hogan in that regard today too. That's it. I'm going. Any questions? I'll answer them if you've got anything more.
Thank you for that submission, Wayne, and for taking the time and for your patience with us as well. Do I have any questions from any members this morning for Wayne Brown?
Be surprising. I'm usually pretty clear. Okay.
Very concise and to the point. So thank you again for your time. You're free to go and enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully it's beautiful and sunny up there as well. Stay safe.
Ka kite anō.
Ka kite. Thank you, members, for that. That brings us to our next submitter, Linda Kay, who is speaking to her submission on page 36. I understand she is with us here this morning. Linda, if you are able to, I'd invite you to turn your camera on with us at this point. My name is Councillor Rachel Smith. I am the chair of the Strategy and Policy Committee, and you have a number of the members of the committee with you here this morning. You are being live streamed via our YouTube channel, so you are able to go back and watch back your submission if you'd like. You have 10 minutes to speak to your submission. I'll give you an indication at the 9-minute mark, and if there's any time for any questions and answers, I will open the floor to members. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Through the chair, I've just been informed that Linda is not with us at the moment. She will join us a little bit later. Malcolm is there though, if you would like to pull him forward.
Thank you, Dolly. We will pull Malcolm forward. So, Malcolm, I know that you've been with us here since 10 o'clock this morning, so I know you would have heard my spiel a few times now. Thank you for joining us. The floor is yours. Members, Malcolm's submission is on page 45 of the agenda. You have 10 minutes.
Kia ora, Rachel. Ngā mihi atu ki o koutou, mihi atu anō hoki ki o he whakatau nei ki o mātou I rungi I tēnei kaupapa, he kaupapa hohonu, he kaupapa mai I awhina tia mō tātou hāpori. Kia ora, and thank you for the time. Look, I'm going to be pretty short and speak to the point. I think it's important. I'm representing both Marae, Te Rarawa and Te Uriohina in regards to our submission. Whilst I acknowledge some of the previous speakers talking about the signage and the lack of need for signage in Pukepoto, particularly in our community, we think appropriate signage is actually significant. But we also want to acknowledge that's part of a whole group of things that actually help mitigate the risk for speed, and why our submission for speed limits was made on that basis. We wanted to particularly speak to the issues around the roads themselves in particular, and infrastructure around developing safety for the community in Pukepoto, particularly outside the two marae. Infrastructure support for the community to develop, and I note that one previous speaker spoke around roading design, and we also acknowledge that maybe some of the roading design or support to provide safety for not only the community but also others that travel through this community of Pukepoto. I was born and raised in Pukepoto, have been away for nearly 30 years, and have come back and noticed a significant change and increase in traffic through Pukepoto to Ahipata, and noted that obviously the West Coast roads all the way out to Whangape and around to the Hokianga. Again, I travelled that road in the last 2 months just to get my sense of the roading, but for Pukepoto, we counted a significant lack of people acknowledging the speed coming through Pukepoto. For us, we find that one of our biggest risks, and it's been noted by our queer over a significant decades, is that the road frontage to our marae, particularly Te Rarawa, during times of tangihanga, create significant traffic risk, and particularly for our people who come to pay their respects to the bereaved whānau. And we've seen traffic still go through there when our cars are parked outside our marae. And even with limited parking on both marae's property, the design of the road from Te Uriohina's perspective, coming from Pukepoto Primary School, it's hard coming out of the parking area because it's been blocked in regards to that sharp corner where we say the pupis live opposite. And also access by people using the road verge to actually travel within Pukepoto for people who are not using vehicles. Again, there used to be a maintained walkway from Pukepoto Primary School through to the community. That no longer seems to be maintained, and that's been one area of concern. I think Mr. Beatson referred to there were culverts that were actually, or the drains on either side of the road, particularly on the left-hand side opposite Te Rarawa marae, with cars parking halfway in front of the marae. It still creates a risk for people, because then your relative risk there is when traffic are flying past as you're trying to cut across the road. If you come out between vehicles there, then it significantly increases the risk. Our submission was purely based around maybe some of the infrastructure support outside our marae, or to assist in reducing and maybe working towards the road design to reduce the lack of vision from egress from Te Uriohina marae when going into and coming out. Traffic coming from Te Ahipata creates a significant risk, even with the speed nominated there. One key thing that we also wanted to raise was in relation to the access to our urupa at Pukepoto. Cars literally have to come to a stop nearly not even 10 metres from the bridge when you get to turn left to go up to the Urupa in Pukepoto. That in itself, for a person who doesn't know the area, could cause significant risk, especially during tangihanga. Again, these are all points that have been raised by our kaumātua and kuia at our last marae hui. And so we've worked really hard now to look to, we still think that signage is important. We still think that it's only one of many other things that we can do conjointly, and it isn't the be all and end all that we consider, but for the safety of our community, we'd like to see, as you may note in our submission, we identified the key areas where we think that support could work, but also importantly, I think a stronger relationship with our community and the council in relation to continuing to review and reflect on the changes that we are proposing or recommending, and what we also as our own community take in responsibility for the signage to ensure that we can actually manage and observe and provide feedback on a continuous nature with the council and also with Te Waka Kotahi. And I think that's one of the things that is important. And finally, safety contributes to the aspirations of our community for maintaining safety for our rangatahi and our kaumātua and kuia. Only yesterday, one of our kuia says she no longer walks to meet other kaumātua and kuia in Pukepoto because she fears for her safety. And that to me is a significant concern that we have. And so the re-establishment of maybe moving the off-road parking outside Te Rarawa Marae, reducing the visual impacts that they have for Te Urio Hina Marae. I think the tangihanga of Heke Nuku Mai Puepi was a prime example of when we had a significant amount of traffic and traffic control, which also was a point that we made clear was that we're quite happy to work quite closely and have done in the past with the New Zealand Police to help control traffic. But it's at times when we actually have community hui as well as tangihanga that sometimes we've had to take responsibility in managing signage or putting out cones along the side. And we want to maintain that relationship so that we can continue to work cooperatively with the council, with the police, and also probably with education for other people. I strongly challenge those who say that signs are no good. I say signs actually play a part in the bigger picture. And that's where our community is coming from, is that we would like to think that we can take all of the bits that we think are necessary, and reduction of speed is one that we consider is important, particularly in Pukepoto. The last component was in regards to our relationship. It isn't just the two marae, but we're also in close proximity to Pukepoto Primary School. And that is significantly important to us. Even with the drop-off bay that they have there, I've spoken to teachers who said that even with the drop-off bay, cars still go far beyond the speed limit that's safe for our rangatahi. And so we want to maintain that having the variable speed and signs noticed. I noticed outside Pukepoto heading towards Ahipata, you have the 70-kilometre sign. 2 meters behind that, it goes back up. It just, we need to review those signs about the efficacy of those and how they would work. And so I think part of the education is we're looking to work with our primary school and community coming to talk to kids and working with Waka Kotahi and the police around education, around signs and awareness. Because I think that drivers, regardless of where they're from, whether they're from the region or not, our education is also about within the community itself. And so we want to continue to improve that with working with the council and developing a stronger relationship so that we can continue to have more input into what's occurring. That's all I have to say. Kia ora. Any questions?
Tēnā koe, Malcolm. Thank you for that. I've got Councillor Collard and Councillor Foy.
Yeah,
Sure.
kia ora, Malcolm. Dave Collard here.
Kia ora.
I certainly hear what you're saying in terms of Pukepoto Village. I drive through it on a regular basis myself and have done for many, many years. And I understand what you're saying about signs. I think that they are somewhat inadequate. However, the feeling is that I'm gathering is that speed is the biggest issue. And given the probably glacial pace of change that we have within our environment, do you see any short-term quick fix to get you through to major change. Now that could be in the form of traffic calming with speed humps, which are effective elsewhere. It could be, I don't know, little diversions like chicane type things. I don't know, but as a person that's involved with the people living there and living there yourself, do you see what the obvious thing is?
Oh, look, one of the probably the ones that stuck out and was put in our submission was in relation to the ability to put the verges, where the verges are outside Te Raroa Marae. On the right hand, you've got them on the right hand side heading towards Ahipata. You have cars that park in a almost diagonal way, or angle, sorry, which gives just that. But all the way down to Awaroa Road, you've got a wide almost drain there that we believe that if there was infrastructure that allowed us to provide support to actually cover that drain so that parking could go a bit further, but actually provides just over 2 meters, 2.5 meters space for cars. So it gives space from the car being parked and almost a half a meter to the road, so people can actually stand past their cars and look to see the traffic coming. That would, on both sides of the road, actually, that's something that we think would be quite add significantly to the safety of Te Raroa Marae. And on the left-hand side, heading towards Kaitai, the same thing. If we had proper drainage and allowed us to put piping there and then cover off the road, again, we have a meter, a half a meter to a meter, free access and view up and down over 300 meters each side of Te Raroa. And that we believe would be one that we could do. The long term, Te Raroa in working, and the same applies where you say just over the bridge heading towards Ahipata with the access going up to the Urupa, because every car literally has to slow down to 5 kilometres to turn left. There is no offside opportunity to get off to allow through traffic. So therefore, we believe that that's a risk. So if we were allowed to do that and allowed for us to enter and take egress, we could actually, again, increase safety more than anything else.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Kia ora, Malcolm. Councillor Foy.
Kia ora, Felicity.
Tēnā koe e hoa. Thanks for coming today, and you raised some really relevant points. I don't know if the other lecture members are aware of the layout of Pukepoto and how the two marae are relatively close to each other, and how the Urupa is on the other side of the road and up a hill, and also how council put in new side barriers that actually reduce the width of the road even further. I guess I've got a couple of questions and one note to staff. So the staff was supposed to do a site visit with the marae representatives. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened as yet. I know we're in COVID times, but we look forward to that to resolve some of the issues that you've raised. My first question, is it correct that for Tangihanga, that because there's hardly any space between the parking area and the road, that informally people sort of put cones on the road? And what is the actual speed that people drive past to sort of get around all those parked cars at the time? That's my first question. Yeah. My second question is it correct that for Tangihanga and to get our people up to their final resting places at the Urupa, that they have to carry our people on the road because there's no footpath or no path other than the road, and the road verge being so narrow?
In answer to your first question, yes, I think we do, or I should say to your questions as a whole. Our response has always been it's part of our process to carry the tūpapaku from the marae by hand and by foot and carry it up weather permitting more than anything else. And our opportunity to prevent and provide safety is we have used cones and continue to use cones and use traffic control. There have been times, I know when my mother passed away, our relationship with the police actually brought officers out to actually help control the traffic for the duration that we had until the ope had carried the tūpapaku to the Urupa. And that still happens now. I think particularly people may remember with Hekanuku Mai Puhipi, I mean, they literally stopped the traffic until that his body was carried up. So both marae use that practice, and that was a practice that was frowned upon for a number of years, but we still continue to do that because that's been part of our tikanga for Inga Waumua. So, yep. And we would like to continue to build that relationship to reduce the risk by stopping traffic beyond both ends of marae, 100 metres past each marae. We would put the cones out to that to reduce the speed. And we've seen people actually travelling past the 70 speed limit, doing literally, people perceive as being 100 kilometres, having to slam their brakes on even that far out. So, and traffic has been known before we brought the Tūpapaku out, where people have slowed down but have done considerably more than the time spent. And of course, traffic with trucks going through doing tangihanga is also another high risk for incidents to occur there as well, particularly with a lot of rangatahi around.
Tēnā koe, Malcolm, thank you for that. And you've provided some really valuable feedback for other parts of the organisation as well. So we'll be asking staff to take that on board, and I'm sure Councillor Foy will pick that up through her infrastructure committee. Thank you for your patience and your time with us today. You're welcome to stay on for the duration of the hearings. You're also welcome to carry on with your day. Stay safe.
Okay, kia ora. Thank you.
Kia ora. Members, that brings us now to Speaker Linda Kay, who I understand has had some significant tech challenges, but has been able to adapt and join us via phone this morning. So Linda is speaking to her submission on page 36. Linda, thank you for the effort that you've put in to be able to speak with us today. I appreciate it's a frustrating situation. My name is Councillor Rachel Smith. I'm the chair of the Strategy and Policy Committee, and you have here today with you majority of members of the committee. You have 10 minutes to speak to your submission this morning, and I'll give you a signal at the 9-minute mark. If we have time for questions within that 10 minutes, then I'll open the floor to any members for clarification. But I will pass the floor to you now. The floor is yours.
Oh, kia ora. Thank you so much. I take it you've read my submission, and I also asked Caitlin to submit a photo from a truck spill last week. Do you have that photo?
I'm just pulling up the photo now. I'm having a issue accessing it because it's gone to my junk mail. Sorry, Linda.
Well, okay. I made a submission in respect particularly of heavy vehicles, but also of general speed limits in the Pohupohu village area and surrounds. But that's where I live. I live next door to the clinic on the north side in Pohupohu. I don't know how familiar you all are with the village layout here. One of the difficulties clearly in an area this isolated is going to be enforcement. I don't know how anything's going to work if there's not actually either some monitoring or some real commitment to actual enforcement of speed limits. And a major issue here is that we do not have safe walk or cycle ways to the ferry. Of course, we've recently had a very small extension of the walkway from the village towards the ferry, but we've been asking, I would see probably 10 years, we've been asking for a safe walkway. And also there's an issue in terms always of this kind of legislation that it's limited in what it can achieve in the context of much wider issues, such as that the logging truck drivers, of course, are in a gig economy and they're having to get their logs to and from the area where they're cut and then to the wharf, and so they're always in a rush. There's really no way around that. And the rigs get bigger and bigger and bigger, and the pollution that they cause on really every level, to the air, to the hour, to the trees, to the bird life, and light pollution, because they work all night, and now they have this new lighting that's like lit up like little Christmas trees turning through the village at 2 o'clock in the morning, and so I do realise that it's very hard to address all these wider issues, the road infrastructure, which of course is continually damaged, because these roads were never designed to take this weight of traffic at this speed, and the community pays for that. So essentially, it's the community always that's paying for this in terms of our lives and our health, and it also is incompatible with interests of tourism, with the running of the ferry. If you have you managed to get that photo up, you'll see that means people couldn't get to the ferry.
Yes, the photo's on the screen.
Yes, and also just the damage to life and limb. There was a fatal accident quite recently, and when that happens, you're calling out local members of our community who are volunteers in the fire brigade and the ambulance, and it's just heartbreaking. So, to the extent that a considerably reduced speed limit, a restriction on operating hours, and enforcement of those would make any difference, that's what I'm advocating.
Thank you.
Oh, could I just make one other comment that I do notice when the trucks drive much more slowly, the noise level is considerably reduced as well. They can actually reduce noise by traveling slowly. But of course, no one's monitoring the noise or the damage to the roads or the hours that they're working, something like that, or the air pollution or the water pollution, as far as I can tell. So that's probably nearly my 10 minutes, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Linda, thank you so much for that, and for that photo as well. It's quite a scary scene that you've illustrated there for us. Members, are there any questions for Linda in regards to her submission? Linda, I'm not seeing any hands up at this point from the committee, so you must have made your point loud and clear. Thank you for your time and for working through the connectivity frustrations that I know that you must have experienced this morning. We really appreciate you pushing on and getting here to speak with us today. So that brings us to the end of your submission. You're welcome to go and enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe. Thank you again.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Ka kite. Now, members, I understand our next speaker, John Partai, is having significant connectivity issues as well. So the next speaker I have scheduled is Donna Beatson, who isn't scheduled until 11:50. So perhaps at this point, if there is any staff guidance as to how we might take this, or whether we are able to bring those later speakers forward, it would be appreciated. Thank you. So at the moment, Aisha, if we're not able to get hold of John, that gives us 30 minutes until Donna. I think it's best if we just work to the schedule that we've got rather than try and disrupt her day. So I'm happy to pause for 30 minutes unless anybody's got any objections to that, and perhaps be back here just before 11:50.
That suits me fine because I've just got to jump out for about 30 minutes. Thanks.
Perfect. Well, in that case, members, we are going to pause until our next speaker, which is at 11:50. So if you could all be back just before then, that would be great. I think that will leave us 2 speakers for the remainder of the session at this point. Thank you, everybody. Kia ora koutou and welcome back. So our next submitter is John Partai. The floor is yours, John.
Kia ora. Tēnā koe Rachel, tēnā koutou ngā rangatira o te kaunihera nui o te taitokerau. Ka nui te mihi kia koutou e homai tēnei wāhi kia au, te kōrero e pāna ki te huarahi o Roma. So just thank you to John, if you're on here, our mayor, mihi to you, and to all working councillors. It's been an opportunity for me to speak to this submission that I made a little while ago now, and I appreciate that. So I just want to begin by saying that I'm actually a resident on Roma Road. I'm a chairman of our marae and the chairman of our Wāhi Tapu, that's our cemetery, one of the main cemeteries in Ahipata. And so I am representing the voice of 22 organisations in Ahipata. I could name every one of them here if I get time to, but there are 22, and about 15 of them are actually on Roma Road. That's the Kohanga Reo, the marae itself, the Wharewhiritoi, the Rakana Temple, the St. Clemens Anglican Māori Church, just to name a few of them. But so on behalf of the organisations, we're also supported by other groups in Ahipata that are not on Roma Road, but understand the significance of the road to our little township. And they're organisations like the Ahipata Primary School, where the school buses come through our road every day, the Rarawa Rugby Club, we have the golf club in Ahipata, and of course the other two marae of Ahipata, Kraukore and Wainui marae. Roma marae is actually the marae matua for Ahipata. That is the main designated marae for Te Rarawa Kaiwhare iwi who reside in Ahipata. So it's a culturally significant road. It's one of the oldest roads in Ahipata. And when I first returned to the north after being away for about 30 years, I was dismayed to see that the road was still in metal. And I led a delegation down to Kaikohe, and I didn't know who she was, but I got stuck in to the poor councillor there, and the lady leading it, I found out later, was dear Yvonne Sharp. So she was actually our mayor, and I didn't know that. But look, we got it tar sealed, and now what we're asking for is if this is the committee to put the submissions to, according to Sean Baker, who I've been, we invited to our marae, and we had a full house so that he could see, how important this is to us. So if this is the committee that I need to speak to, well, I'm grateful for that. So Roma Road at present, the speed limit is 100 kilometres an hour. And that is, it's only a small road, 2 kilometres max. And cars use that as a drag strip, some cars that come through there. They've got 2 long straights and they just hoof it down there. It's, it's not safe to walk along the road with the current speed. So hence the submission to you. I have made submissions twice to this effect in the past, and was appalled that one of the reasons given to me for we being unsuccessful in getting it reduced in the past was that nobody had been killed on Roma Road. I couldn't believe it. I said, so that's no longer acceptable for us, that we haven't had a death on Roma Road and hence it stays at 100. We won't accept that along with any other excuse. It's just so the three main reasons that we had listed was the hauora o ngā tamariki mokopuna, the health and safety of our children. We have over 60 residents who live on Roma Road itself or on the two roads that come off Roma Road, that is Ngā Karoro and Waitahuia. 60 residents. There are 23 children that use that, that live along Roma Road. The 99% Māori, the families, and it's dangerous. So that was one of the reasons why we had in our submission. The other was our Indigenous right to self-determination and protection of our culture and relationship to the environment. It's I've already said that Roma is a significant road culturally for us because of the marae and the wahi tapu that is on that road, and to have cars going past at 100k is not only dangerous, it's really disrespectful. And so that was the second reason. The third one is the protection of our queer kaumatua. We have a queer kaumatua flat that is flats that are on Roma Road, and I would not advise them to walk along the road. It's that risky at the moment, and they have a right to walk that road. We've always walked it as children. So those are the three reasons that we have given for extra consideration. What we're asking for is that the speed limit be reduced to 60 kilometres in that 2 kilometre stretch, or it's not actually 2, it's about 1 point something, I forgot now, but that it be reduced to 60 and past the marae 40. The reason why we want to put to 40 past the marae is that we have a kohanga reo there. I don't know of any other school in the country that you can go past at 100 k's, but you can on Roma Road. So our kohanga reo is the oldest kohanga reo in north of Whangarei. It was founded in 1982, and it operates from out of our marae, and we would like the speed limit to be reduced to 40 kilometres past the marae. We would also like it to be reduced down by the cemetery, but I was told that might be asking a bit much. So that's my kōrero. I suppose I've got to leave you time to ask me questions. The last thing that I wanted to say was that the two roads that come off, especially the one in the middle, it's very dangerous there, because with cars going past at 100, the road in the middle is called Waitahuia, and it's like Russian roulette when you come out of there. If the cars are going past poofing down, there's not much visibility until you poke your nose out and have a look. So that's another reason why we would like the speed limit reduced along Roma Road. So I'll on behalf of the Roma Road trustees, the members of the organisations like the Kaumatua Flats, the Kohanga Reo, the Ratana Temple, the St Clement's Church committee, I'm asking for your serious consideration so that our mokopuna and our queer kaumatua can walk safely along that road. Kia ora koutou.
Tēnā koe mātua. Thank you for your fantastically pragmatic submission. I've got a couple of questions here for you from Councillor Vucic and then Councillor Collard.
Yeah, John, just one question. When I had a quick look at that road, just so I got my idea where things were, I noticed that there were some children walking along it. Does that actually happen frequently on that stretch of road? That's a nod. You're actually in mute, so I can't hear you, John.
Yes, very much so. They, we have 2 school buses that come through that road every day, so they have to get off the buses and walk a little way to go up their roads. Yes, that's quite common, John.
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah.
Councillor Collard.
Thank you, Rachel. Morning, John. Very, very well presented submission. Thank you very much. A couple of little questions. Is the problem the general speed of vehicles passing through? Me being very familiar with the road and probably guilty as anybody else is in terms of the speed I go. And the reason I ask is the general speed the problem. Would signage to reduce that general speed from 100 down to 70 or 60 or whatever it happens to be adequate without policing or traffic calming devices?
Well, what we ask for is the signage. Yes, I don't. Yeah, and you're right. It is the speed that is the issue. As I said, 100 kilometres past Ohanga Reo is just ridiculous. And so, what was the other part that you asked?
Well, just how basically is what would be the required policing to make a different speed limit work? You know, recognising where Roma Road is, it is off the track a little bit. Not that it's detached; it is just off. It's not in your face in terms of the road itself. So there's not a lot of policing, I would imagine, down that road with everybody that walks on it, and I've walked on it myself. So it would require something more than just a sign.
Well, we can stick a speed hump along it, that especially past the marae, that will slow them down. Yeah. You know, I don't know whether that. I mean, I'd be happy to if that was possible, to have that included. A speed hump would certainly slow them down, because they come up from the bridge and they gather speed and then floor it past the marae and down those 2 straights that follow. So yeah, I mean, if we are eligible for that, I'd like to. Beside the signage, Dave.
Certainly, the reason I asked that question is that knowing the road as well as I do, it is an invitation to go fast when you come up the hill, over the bridge and up that little hill up to where the marae is. And I felt that it would require something a little bit extra. And it's not for me to say what that would be, but it certainly does require something to help in that area.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Councillor Collard. Matua John, I don't have any more hands raised at this point. So that brings us to the end of your submission period. Thank you for such a fantastic submission, especially on behalf of 22 organisations. That is excellent advocacy. Please drive safe on our roads today and enjoy that beautiful sunshine and your pohiri today as well.
Ngā mihi kia
Ngā
koe.
mihi.
Thank you.
Ka kite.
Thank you, everyone. Ka kite.
Okay, members, that brings us to our last speaker for today. We have Donna Beatson with us here this afternoon. We're now this afternoon. Welcome, Donna. You have 10 minutes to speak to us about your submission, which to members is on page 63 of our agenda. I'll let you know when you hit the 9-minute mark, but if we've got some time to allow for questions at the end, I'll open the floor to members. But the floor is yours. You're on mute, Donna.
Not yet, but you had it just a second ago. There you go.
Ka pai.
Oh, ka roha. Ka tangi te titi, ka tangi te tākaka, ka tangi hoki ahau tihei mauriora. I ngā mana, i ngā reo, i ngā iwi o te hiku o tika, nau mai, haere mai, he mihi ana kia matua hone, he tautoko ana, he kōrero kia hone rawa taku tungane Trevor. Ko nuku tawhiti te tangata, ko ngā toki matawhaurua te waka, ko hokianga te moana e rere ana, ko motati taku marae, ko te rarawa te iwi ko Donna Beatson toku ingoa. Engari, he ahipara taku kāinga nainei. Hey, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak today. Apologies for the written submission. It was probably really rushed, and I don't mean to offend your sensibilities or intelligence by the lack of pragmatism that I know that Matua Hone presented with you. I really just have 4 areas that I want to cover, 4 geographic areas that I want to cover in my brief time, and that is Taneke, Roma Road, the entrance to Ahipata, Pukepoto School, and the road from Ahipata to Kaitaia generally. So just to start with Taneke, Taneke, as you're aware, is the village of Ahipata. As you come into Ahipata, you can turn left, go around foreshore, or you can turn right and you come into Taneke. There's been no action for too long in the village, particularly in reference to Kakapo and Taheki streets. We well know those are the streets that the Volunteer Fire Brigade is on, and then the street over from that, which I don't know what's famous on that street, where the Beatsons live and have for a considerable length of time. And in that time, we've experienced so much speeding. There's so much rubber on the road. It's insane. A couple of years back, there were community meetings where discussion about the importance of speed humps were, and would like to thank you for giving them to Foreshore Road. And we have still seen none at all. And if the attempt to wire the turnoff from Taheki Street onto Kakapo Street was an attempt to slow things down. That's not what we were looking for. So the 40k zone that you're proposing there, fantastic, but we want a way to be able to enforce that. We have a lot of queer kaumātua in our community on the flat here, a lot of tamariki. There's no footpaths, so our kids are walking on the road anyway. And it's a really popular circuit to be able to do wheelies and speed on. So used to the speed limit introduction, but as Councillor Collard intimated in his kōrero with Matua John, how is that monitored? And the speed bumps are the solution that we see there. Onto Roma Road, I just want to tautoko what Matua John said there. There was a huge community meeting at the marae to discuss the speed limit introduction there. The sites, there are some significant sites along Roma Road for our community, and he's listed all of those. They're historic sites. They're places that people go. The dangers incurred in attending tangi are exponential. in that you park in front of the marae. If you're not lucky enough to get a park there, you park across the street. And if you're leaving in twilight or dark times when it's not particularly well lit, there are dangers and hazards there for people meeting and engaging in significant cultural events. Likewise with tangi down the road, or the nehu down the road, where at the cemeteries there's no parking, it's all verge parking. It's not safe, so absolutely a 40 mile an hour or 40k speed limit along that road is something that is really necessary. And again, I think the speed humps or speed bumps, I'm not sure what their technical name is, really need to be investigated along there. Or even though, is it cat's eyes that go in the middle of the road? I'm not sure, but something needs to be done there. Moving on to the entrance of Ahipata, you're cruising along, Kapai, and then you're at 100, and then there is a sign that says you will soon be entering a 50 zone. And then when you kind of quickly look and think, what was that? You're at the 50 zone. So what I propose here is a reflection of exactly what happens at the other end of the road when we get to Kaitaia. We go into a 70 zone for just a short amount of time, and then we're into the 50 zone. So a speed drop before the 50 rather than a sign that you don't actually see. And I'm not sure how expensive it is, but maybe some road markings also. Sometimes you see road markings indicating that there's going to be a change in speed. Those would also be really another good tool to help implement that speed change there. Pukepoto School. Oh my gosh, anxiety. Every morning you go into town, it's like, is the bus going to be there? Who's going to be running across the road? And so there's undue stress and pressure on a driver, I think, being not exactly clear on what the requirements are there. Oh, kia ora, Ruth. I can't let you in. So my proposal there is, again, we're doing the 100, slow to 70, then to the 40. And that's up until the school. And I really think, in the interests of safety, it needs to stay that until you get past Pukepoto Village, or, you go around the corner and then you're down on the flat, past the Tūmarae, and past that last whare, then the 70, 100 again. And that gives us a really good, safe chunk available from the school to the end of our Pukepoto community. I think there's also, again, the opportunity for road markings to, school ahead on the road, lots of yellow lines, the same in front of the marae, I think would be really useful. There's no pedestrian crossings along anywhere there. I don't know how hard and whether that's within your jurisdiction, but I think that is a really worthwhile consideration. I'm nearly finished. I just want, and I know I'm talking fast, sorry. I just want to talk about the road generally between Ahipata and Kaitaia. It's terrible. It's like a roller coaster. It's too narrow. And I don't think that speed is really the issue. It's the fact there's no passing lanes. It's narrow. There's deep culverts on either side of the road. I think that we really need to look at a significant investment to widen the road and straighten it. There have been attempts at, knocking out corners over the years, and we can all see those sort of like parts of the road that are now dead because it's been straightened, and we really need to look at that. Well, I submit to you that, let's widen the roads. I lived in Asia for many years. I drove in Seoul for 10, and probably the most nervous I am driving is in New Zealand, specifically that road from Ahipata to Kaitaia. So, and I also, just one last thing, and I don't think that this is within your remit, but just increased road safety training, possibly in high schools. I know that REAP does a great job, but yeah, I think that's something we can look as a tool as well. So, ko motu taku kōrero anaine, thank you for your time. I know you're all fed up. I'm the last one. You're thinking, oh, when's lunch? So I am too. So I'll just be quiet now. Thank you.
Ngā mihi nui, Donna, thank you for that. And you're not the last one now. Our last speaker has managed to join us, so you're second to last. I've got a quick question from Councillor Collard before we let you head off for your lunch.
Ka pai.
Good afternoon, Donna. Thank you for that. I'm sure you've covered some things that have been covered, but just to bring to light a question for me. You know, the entrance into Ahipata, how far back do you see that 70k sign should be? It probably, in my thinking, and I want you to just confirm or tell me I'm stupid if that's what the case is, but it would need to come back past Sandhills Road because there is quite a community in that new subdivision there, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, at the very latest Sandhills Road, I think, you know,
I think
yeah, I mean, probably even 500 meters on from Wainui Junction. Like, I think, yeah, it needs to come back quite a significant way because of that new community. And, well, it's not new, but it's new to us. But, you know, that turn off to down Dump Road as well. You know, there's a fair bit of traffic that comes in and out of there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I just wanted to get that on the air in terms of people looking at this as to what magnitude that needs to be, because there are and always have been issues around that intersection there in terms of the speed. It's good.
Yeah, sorry, you've just triggered something else that I've remembered. Can I speak to? And that is just not lowering the speed limit from 100 to 80 in the areas that I haven't described. Having been on these 80k roads around the far north into Paihia, into Kerikeri, the level of frustration is huge. And I think that let's keep it at 100. Any of us who drive the Ahipata road know that quite often you're stuck behind somebody who's doing 80 anyway, so there's no point, I don't see. But yeah, the level of frustration having to be at 80 is pretty high, and I think that, you know, being in Ahipata with the best left-hand surf in the country, people want to get here fast, so we don't want to put too many barriers in the way of them getting here, nor us in terms of emergency situations. You know, there's a tsunami warning goes out on next minute, we're all having to go 80. That's a bit hoha. Yeah, so keep the 100.
Thank you for that point. Kia ora. That brings us to the end of your submission time. So thank you for your patience and for joining us today. Go and enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe.
Ai, kia ora koutou.
Ka kite. So members, we have one more speaker. Ruth, I understand, has been able to join us, which is fantastic news. Ruth, if you're with us and able to join, turn your camera on, that would be fantastic. Kia ora, kia ora. So my name is Councillor Rachel Smith. I chair the Strategy and Policy Committee, who you have majority of members with you today. Some have their cameras on and some don't. You are being live streamed via our FNDC YouTube channel today, so you'll be able to go back and watch yourself if you like. You have 10 minutes to speak to your submission. I'll give you an indication at the 9-minute mark, and if there's any time within that 10 minutes, I'll allow any questions from members. So the floor is yours. Kia ora.
Tēnā tātou. I've just walked out of a hui and into this hui, so aroha mai. I have just recently moved back to Taitokero after almost 17 years away, and my submission today is really to do with a wera hui. Oh, thank you, Rachel. Just going back to my submission, I attended the hui around Roma Marae, and this is coming from a mama perspective from my child attending Te Ohaki Kohanga Reo in that particular area. So I think it's important to identify that, obviously from a rangatiratanga lens, being whakapapa back to Amarai and Ahipata. Fortunately, that afternoon we went to a hui and discussed the speed limits along that space of road. I have to then declare as well, it's really important that I did not know anything about the speed limits until they were raised at that hui. I think it's important for me to identify that because I too was one of those people that were travelling along that road at those high speeds after, for a long period of time. It's really important to then sit down and come back. One of the key things, and that I wrote in my submission, aroha mai, I'm a little bit just going back to our kōrero, is the speed limit for Roma Road not having ever, and I mean for somebody that lived there for such a long time, not really ever having an idea on how fast we were going as people down there and the impact that made on our marae, the people that surround it, our kaumata and kuia. It is also bringing to this kōrero today, I wanted to bring light on an example, recent example that I've had. Whaipare, one of our kuia, was backing out of the Roma Marae driveway at the front of the road, and what we experienced was she was backing out of there at a really slow pace and really worried about the cars that were coming towards her from each side. One of the things that I wanted, and this won't take 10 minutes, but one of the things I wanted to raise here was not only the safety that speed brings you in terms of people travelling along the road and people that are coming in and out of the marae, but also the shared understanding of how we should be behaving and operating for ngā tamariki e heke mai ana. So as in a sense of our mokopuna are at that kohanga reo, my child's at that kohanga reo, seeing and watching cars head along that road at fast and high speeds, and our kaumata and kuia struggling to get out of those driveways, in and out of those roads. One of the reasons why I wanted to come on, I didn't actually really, I was a bit shy to come on here today, but what I wanted to really point out was if we had a 40k going past our marae, it would really align our thinking of bringing our own marae into a space of equity like schools. If we look at schools and the importance of tamariki at schools and the area and the focus that we have as society on how important it is for our people of the public to go slower near the buses and slower than the schools, then we really need to pick up that rhetoric and drop it across and put that same focus and that same equitable lens as kawanatanga on our marae that actually feature just as many tamariki, obviously not on a regular basis, but tamariki, matua, and then kaumatua as well. In that particular sense, it makes up of a marae, kaumatua flats, and a kohanga reo. So if we really are using, in the analogy that we're using about getting on the bridge for rangatiratanga, ensuring that Article 1 of our own decision making as kawanatanga are going to meet the needs of Article 3 being oritetanga, then where are we going to make the call and where are you going to make the decision about getting onto that particular bridge and going across to meet rangatiratanga needs and wants for the space of being in our marae area? Because we meet it for our kura, and we know that that sits underneath our own kawanatanga crown base kaupapa, but I think it would be a really good thing to think about how we're meeting, not only just because it's a marae, it's a road, but also how are we meeting the needs of rangatiratanga and ensuring that Article 1, Article 2 and Article 3 are in action and into effect. That's really how I've viewed that, how I can see that not only are our mokopuna are in that area, but our kaumatua are in that area all day, most of the day as well. yeah, that's the model that I've used to be able to identify the importance, equitable decisions, equitable access to making decisions, and how we can best support that from our marae to ensure that we come and we create shared understandings on what those should be going forward. So yeah, koina taku kōrero. Sorry, it's not 10 minutes.
Kia ora. No, not at all. Kia ora for that, Ruth. That was a fantastic submission. So thank you for taking the time to come and speak with us about what's obviously so true to you. And it's been a really good understanding for me, especially. So Councillor Collard has a question for you.
Yeah, I'm allowed to break the rules because you're last. And I say thank you very much for enlarging my horizon in terms of marae and the relationship with schools to probably a very level footing, and we really need to recognise that. So I say thank you very much for that.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, Councillor Collard. So Ruth, I don't have any indication of any more hands. So again, I can only thank you for your time and for sharing this with you. Apologies, Mayor Carter has just raised his hand, so he may have a comment or question for you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ruth, I just want to say congratulations. Thanks for coming along today. You can have every confidence that your submission was well made. Just want to congratulate you on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, tēnā koe.
So Ruth, that brings us to the end of our submission time with you. Thank you again. You're welcome to go and get back to your busy mahi day, I'm sure.
Get back to my minister.
But thank you again. Please stay safe and ka kite.
Ka pai, tēnā tātou.
So members, that brings us to the end of our speakers today and the end of our formal meeting time. So Woko, Councillor Tipinia opened us with a karakia. Councillor Tipinia, would you be happy to close us with a karakia as well? And then just a reminder to members to please stay online at the conclusion of our formal meeting. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Chair Smith. Hakawate, 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 te hinengaro, hakawate, te ngākau haka ngā wate te wairua, haungi hui e pāiki.